Welcome to American Intelligence Media. This is Thomas Paine in the Ass of the Globalist, also known as Douglas Gabriel, and I am here with DeFango. I am blown away. Thank you for coming onto the show, DeFango.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I'm an idiot. I know nothing about you. I got myself into this problem because I got contacted by Q, and I have made a huge mistake, and I need to apologize to the whole world, and especially to you, because I just watched a couple hours of your videos. You're a genius cryptologist. I have none of the skills you have to decipher the amazing codes that are in the Cicada and all that you've done, Cicada 3301, which kind of led you, I guess, and you're going to explain this in a minute, to the Q phenomena, which you had a lot to do with. And so we're putting this out as further evidence, not evidence that I'm a genius. Here's what I mistakenly understood. When I saw the new Cicada 3301 and the phrase was there, I interpreted the phrase. When I started talking to Z, the leader, actually the guy, the guys and people, whatever, who make this stuff up, but specifically one guy we call Z, I told him, hey, let me give you my shot at the words. I didn't know there was dyads and secret things in cryptology, and every image can have, oh my God. First off, how the hell did you ever learn to do that cryptology, to be one of the few people that ever figured out Cicada?
Well, I mean, I started back a while ago, like in 2013, after I heard about the phenomenon. And I don't know, I just kind of started learning about like the different methods that they were utilizing. And then I would try my own methods and basically kind of just play around with these programs. I mean, I can't honestly say that I'm like some genius cryptologist. I've just have done it a lot over the years, and like last year I just decided to spend a lot of time on it, and it seemed to be very easily, like it's been coming very naturally to me now. But I guess it's what they say, once you understand the method, you don't really, it becomes so much easier.
That's amazing. You're a self-taught cryptologist using all these amazing systems that I don't even know what they are. I was looking at what you were doing on your videos. You're the only person has revealed this now, I guess. I'm looking around, and now that I talked to you and Z on the phone together, I guess you were in his house, I assume, but it was one phone, and that was after I had many hours of conversation with Z, vetted everything that Z told me, vetted others from that group who told me things, and now you come in. Now, the only thing I know about you, is I have heard you are a genius cryptologist beyond anybody else. So that's all I knew. So now I'm ignorant. But I got real educated real fast today when you got on the phone with Z, and Z confirmed that not only did you figure this out through the Cicada 3301 at all the riddles, but that you are connected to him, to the group, to the people who created the original Q, and I'm going to shut up now, you were the friggin' strategist. That's what he just told me. Can you tell us about how that happened?
I mean, honestly, I kind of go through my life on my YouTube channel and do things, but I'm always putting information out there. When I started solving the puzzles, like a lot of people say that it's an AI or some other crazy nonsense. Like some people said Q is an AI. I just laugh at those people because they know nothing of reality. But when I was working on these puzzles, you got to realize is that, it's like an ARG. To me, I just treated it like it was a video game, and I figured that there was always, I was eventually going to end up in front of a person, like a real life person. And I've met a couple of them, but, I've always just kind of like, given out ideas and said, okay, well, if this is about counterculture and ending corruption, I was actually a little more, I guess, negative with them. I was just kind of like, so what the hell are you guys doing? You guys are just making puzzles and collecting people, and you're not really fixing anything. I'm like, what's the point in that? So I
love your frankness. You're like the hero, the strategist of the Q movement, which reaches 30 million people. You're going, hey, I'm not really, whatever. Like,
yeah, it was just kind of it was a kind of a whatever situation for me. But they said that we needed to go to DEF CON, which is like a hacker convention. I had never been to it before. I had actually stayed away from it because I was like, I don't really like the hacker types. Like most of them are always always just trying to see like who's the best or whatever. And to me, it's not about like who's the best. It's about how to understand all these things. So I didn't want to go, but they gave us a time and a place to be in this place. And one of the places was called the Sky Talk. And in these Sky Talks, this particular Sky Talk was about whistleblowing and about whistleblowers. So when you go into this room, no cell phones, no cameras, no recording of any kind, it's just kind of like everybody sits down and has a completely open conversation about what's going on. And it's very interesting because if you look at the guy that started DEF CON, he's also a member of the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations. And, he's like the big hacker in charge that would, kind of be like, I guess you could say like maybe a member of the deep state. I can't confirm or deny that. But the reality is that a lot of people in this room are whistleblowers, like people that work for the government agents, other non-government agents, people that work for these companies as contractors, all sorts of things. And there was a big talk on how could you actually get information out? And, throughout the whole entire talk, they were giving us all the different examples of what you could and could not do. And at the end of it, nobody really had any questions for anything. So I raised my hand and was like, I got a question, but it's not really a question. It's more like a theory that I'd postulate to you. And, you just tell me if you think that this would work or not. And that's where I was like, so what if we went with the Socratic method and you started putting out things in the form of questions for people, Cicada 3301 does that all the time. I was like, and it seems that nobody's attacking these people or going after them, even though they're giving out relevant information that, predates the things that are coming out there. This is actual real intelligence and, it's coming out in a way that's not harming people. And I was like, I don't see what the problem would be with, if a whistleblower wanted to come out and release these questions, this is, how you should do it. And I recommended that they stay away from 4chan. I was like, but you guys are probably going to do this on 4chan anyway, because you're idiots. And I even explained to them why, but it's like they use 4chan, and I was like, if you're going to do this, you go on 4chan, you pick a letter, whatever letter you want, it doesn't matter. You pick a letter, you make a secure trip code, and then you start like releasing breadcrumbs. And I was like, but before you do that, you spend some time building it up by just kind of making anonymous posts so that you get the community itself to kind of latch onto the idea and start, generating progress before, you go to your secure zone. Because once you hit that secure zone, like on the way that the trip codes work on 4chan, you only got a couple weeks before somebody can crack into that thing. I mean, nobody's really trying to go out of their way for cryptology on these things, and we've seen it happen before. There's been 3 different trip codes for this Q individual for some time, but really it's just like a situation where you look at it, and a lot of people don't understand that, you can make things happen, all these different anons that come out, FBI anon, mega anon, they all go on 4chan, they drop information, and nobody seems to get in trouble. So I was just like, if you go out there, you ask your questions, you put them out, and then you get off, you don't keep it going. Because if you try to keep it going, I was like, this is how it's going to come out, Somebody's going to crack a trip code, they're going to take it over, and then you're going to have some other entity playing the same thing that you were playing, but kind of changing it a little bit. And I was like, and then the whole entire situation's screwed up. And I was like, if somebody sees that this is going to go somewhere, I was like, obviously some big entity is going to kind of try to come up and swoop in and take over with it and utilize it. And that's kind of what we see with the community right now. There's so many QTubers out there. There's so many people that are looking into this theory, and it's almost like a fire in their hearts, I guess you could say, is that they're trying to figure out what's actually going on. It's blowing their minds, and they're literally becoming addicted to looking at this thing. And what they're not understanding is that they're literally introducing themselves to programming, becoming programmed, and then it's like they're getting MK Ultra and they don't even understand. They don't even get that it's happening to them because they're so enamored with the information that's coming out.
So DeFango,
and it's crazy.
Let me see if I get this right. Somehow, you went to this conference and you were with some of the people that, or even Z him or herself, and some of those people. So did they had they already you had already been invited in because you solved the puzzles before you went to the conference and then made a public statement about this?
I didn't really make a public statement about it. I mean, I really just showed up at the place because they said they wanted me to go put a QR code up somewhere, and then I was like, well, that idea sucks, so I printed out a bunch of them, and then I just started walking around to people and handing them the QR codes with the little cicada emblems on them, and then I'm just like, yeah, you're not going to believe me anyway, but here you go. If you want to solve the puzzle, you can solve it.
Were there members of the original Q posting people in that meeting? Is that how they heard your idea?
Yes, that has to be I mean, that was the way that I figured it, because, I mean, that's the only way that idea came out. I didn't even talk about it anywhere else. You know, like, I didn't tell anybody, and there's a whole room of people with clearances much higher than mine in there, and people were definitely listening to me. And one of the individuals that I was like, oh, that's part of the original community, you know, like we had talked about him before, and he was there in that room as well. And
I'm just Z?
Like, no, that's not Z. Okay. Z in particular, you know, we're not going to go ahead and just like not identify any particular individuals, you know, obviously.
Yep. I ask you not to. I won't be any part of revealing anybody who's doing this. So when you said today, and Z confirmed what you just said to me on the phone as you guys and others were talking to me to confirm this. And everything that we're doing, we're vetting through our people. So when stuff is sent to us, we vet it, and everything is vetted out perfectly. So when you said that you were willing to come on and kind of be a spokesperson for the reality of what happened here, and that you might not be the most complimentary person about all of this, but you were there. You created the strategy. So in that room, you put forth the strategy, and then that strategy was taken up, and then the new puzzle was called Q. Can you tell us how Cicada ended up taking that idea and starting with your strategy, starting Q? Because you did you write any of the content of Q, or did you just create the strategy?
I mean, I like I say this pretty easily, is like I wrote like a few questions. That's how I kind of figured out that it was something a little more along the lines, because at that point when I was at DEF CON, I hadn't really I didn't actually like talk to anybody besides, you know, like a few people that had come up to me, and I'm like, are these the people that are a part of this thing? And I'm like, nah. We didn't talk about anything that was really relevant to that. And it wasn't until after that meeting that I got approached by one individual who I had known through the puzzle system, and he was just kind of talking to me about something that he was going to do in the future. And, you know, we kind of shared some ideas and things, and that was just basically, you know, the last thing that I had heard about it. But now with the Cicada thing is like, you know, they build things up, they build things over time. And there was a song that they had put in the puzzle in 2000, or back in April 26, 2017. It was just like an MP3 file called QMP3, and it has like some coded music that I don't think anybody's actually been able to solve, myself included, because I'm not really good with the dyads and things that are out there. That requires a very, very talented. I think that requires somebody that's very talented in musical compositions in order to actually decipher. But it seems to be the way that Cicada seems to be going with everything, because a computer can't crack that.
Right. Because it takes... Now, let me just clarify this for people, if I have understood this right. And you are schooling me here, so correct anything I say that's wrong. It seems like, from what I just saw, from what you opened up as the solutions, or at least the steps of solving the riddle, there's all kinds of cultural, historical, all kinds of stuff in there. It's not just math and cryptology. And then when you get to the end, it's this kind of riddle, this phrase. So after you do all that hard work, DeFango, you get down to the phrase, the riddle. Do you understand what those riddles mean?
I mean, I always take them as like something about a future event. You know, I kind of look at it as like Nostradamus, I guess, because, you know, once I found out that, you know, okay, well, this is obviously people, right? So it's people. So like, what are these people involved with? Like, what are their talents could be? So, you know, like, I like to look at the brighter things, and if we're dealing with, you know, so-called geniuses and things, then, you know, these people got to have those kind of expanded abilities. You know, maybe being able to pierce the veil and look at the future, you know, like we've read about people in the military that have had like the ability to, you know, see the future, or like remote view things. Like these got to be all individual, you know, like a lot of the individuals that seem to be a part of it seem to have some sort of extraneous ability of sorts, you know, whether they're really, really good at musical compositions or really, really good at working with computers or really, really good with this. That was just the weird thing about the whole situation is that I think a lot of people thought that these people were like cyberpunks, I guess, and I guess in a sense they are, because they kind of are, but they kind of aren't, like a lot of the, real life folks that I've met are actually pretty crap on a computer, but they have other things that they can do that are amazing.
Are these amazing people? You have met these people, okay? You have met the geniuses. Some of them had X NSA, X this and that. None of the stuff that was given out in the first Q, I am told, had anything to do with releasing any a whistleblower, top secret information or stuff like that. I'm going to ask you, you've met these people. I don't know how many you've met. I've only talked to a number of them. They're the smartest people I've ever met, okay? Do you actually say, hey, Z, I can't quite figure out those dyads in that new puzzle. Can you give me a little help? Does he help you?
Yeah, I ask all the time, and he just looks at me. He'll just be like, nah. And I was like, yeah, I know.
Well,
like they don't really help me with anything unless
he really likes me, and he told me the secrets on the new one. And he told me that if you give me a hard time, I can reveal some of the secrets. Well, I don't even know what those secrets mean. I couldn't tell you. And he knew I'm an idiot, and he knew that I'm good with words and history, and so I can figure out, believe it or not, every riddle that you showed on your YouTubes. I understood it. I understood every riddle. I didn't understand any of the other stuff, DeFango.
Well,
I didn't understand a lick of it. Little dyads and thirds and fifths and sevenths and stuff layers and all these layers and G waves in the brain and all this stuff, and the fact that this cicada is actually get your brain in the right mood so that you can be smart enough to understand it for a minute, and then you're supposed to figure out the puzzle. And then, like you say, they gather up these geniuses, and like you said, hey, I don't want to just be part of a bunch of geniuses doing nothing. What are you guys doing? So can you tell us what your real motivation was when you came up with that strategy?
Well, I had another strategy. See, because I do things in multiple layers. And back in 2015, I was really just kind of mad that nothing was really going anywhere. And the solver community was really, really tainted, I guess you could say. They were all stuck on Liber Primus, and it just seemed to be really, really difficult for everyone. And I just was like, you know what? I'm kind of mad. I just want to figure out who these people are now. So, I started planning back then on what I was going to do now. So, really it was kind of my whole motivation behind this entire situation was to expose who is behind it and know exactly what was going on. That was what I was trying to do. And I know now, I 100%
and
know.
You've been screaming this, and no one pays attention, as you said to me.
Yeah,
nobody been yelling it, and no one will. Nobody these cares. People.
Yeah, nobody cares, dude. Seriously, nobody cares. No, people are gonna start caring now, but I'm in a situation where it's I went to this area, I got met up with people. I mean, there's some cool shit happened. There was a spear. I mean, after that,
I want to ask about that spear.
After that, we go to this thing, and then I go say some stuff, and then, I go back along my merry way, because they're like, all right, you're going to be the voice, and I'm just like, well, what do? I just solve puzzles, and, where's this going? And, they say there's things that are happening, but really now they're trying to find, the right kind of people, really get people to understand what what's really going on with all the corruption that's just abounds, and, getting people to actually, tear away from their television sets, tear away from the mundane reality and, start actually looking into the things. So, I don't really hate what happened with the Q community, because I'm actually kind of happy, because everything that I said was going to happen is pretty much happened, down to, with the third Q and all this other crud that's happening.
You like to be right, don't you?
I mean, I like to be right, but sometimes I don't like to be right, because I was like, this is what's going to happen, and it's going to get bad, and then all these people are going to become divided against themselves, as we're seeing right now. I went to a Bon Jovi concert last night because I was like, oh shit, these guys did it. Okay, it's over now.
I saw that audio of yours. I'm going, yeah, have a good time at the concert, because the war is raging. When you get back, you were going to drop the biggest truth bomb right over the target.
Exactly. But that's the thing, is these guys don't understand, is that I was like, look, but I was like, if this works, then not only were we able to expose all of the shells perhaps, but we're also able to show people exactly how they get mentally programmed, because we won't have to do the programming. We'll get it to the point where somebody was going to jump in, take over, and then they're going to do it and mistakenly reveal everything that they're doing to people, because now all these folks that looked at this cute thing, everything in the beginning was relevant and it still matters, but now they understand, and they're going to understand very clearly if they really follow along with all this stuff, that they're going to be like, holy crap, I got programmed and then I deprogrammed myself, and now I'll never be able to be programmed in this fashion ever again.
Oh, that is genius. That makes the whole thing worthwhile. We call that discernment, or, waking up out of the sleep, the sleepwalk that people are in, that they've been basically hypnotized into. So you were basically chosen from early on by the group, I think you just said, to kind of be a voice for them, or a spokesperson. Is that true? Is that what I just understood you to say?
Well, yeah, I guess that's what they said, because, obviously none of them are going to be wanting to put themselves up into the front. That's the whole thing. They're all about privacy, nobody knowing who they are, like liberty, justice. Like, privacy is a huge thing for them, because they don't want people to think about it. Because you got to realize is that, some people will be like, oh my God, these guys could be like terrorists or something like that, even though they've never done anything that is terroristic in nature. And we've seen in the past that people have tried to connect them to, things that are happening with Planned Parenthood, or there was this guy, this Quinn Michaels guy, that's trying to say that they're involved in like human trafficking, the things. I mean, it's a war zone out there. I mean, with something that just started off as being like the catalyst to bringing forth the culture, and then these amazing people creating these amazing puzzles. I mean, if you look at it, there's so many new puzzles that are out there. Like, people are always trying to claim that they're Cicada 3301, and people sometimes say it's not Cicada unless there's a PGP key. But what a lot of people don't realize is that the PGP key wasn't there until people in the community wanted to force them to use it, because they had their own little ends to them. But in the reality, to be for it to really be Cicada 3301, it's got to have so many elements that go so far beyond the normalcy of some electronic key. I mean, the words are got to be there, the music has to be there, the imagery has to be there. Like, it's a total package. It's not something that you can easily, I guess, masquerade with. And that's kind of funny, because right now the whole entire puzzle that they're doing is called the Masquerade, like Welcome to the Masquerade, and they're calling it a show.
No, I didn't know that. This is great that you're informing everyone. So has anybody solved the new Cicada 3301 that you know?
As far as I'm concerned, or I don't know, if they never tell me anything about that nature. I mean, if somebody did solve it, they'd probably get a phone call from a certain phone number or something like that would let them know. But currently, right now, like, it's barely in the first month. The puzzles itself will usually last about a month, and I think right now we're in what you would call an intermission of sorts. Like, there's some things to solve to get to the next place, and I've currently gone all the way through everything, and the link that we're supposed to be at isn't there. So just based on the way that they drop things, it's usually like every 7 days. It was about 3 or 4 days ago that we found this last link, so it'll probably be like another 3 or 4 days before we get the next update.
So you're going to solve every one of these riddles the best you can. Is that because that's just who you are? Is that the deal?
Well, lately I've been just trying to solve them to make sure that I could do it. But last year, like, I had a lot of people that were trying to say that I wasn't doing as much as I could, because I had like a Discord group full of solvers, and we were all kind of working together to get to the place. But for most of the stuff that I personally solved, like, hey, I worked with everybody, we solved everything together, and I kept records of everything, video and otherwise. And this year I was like, okay, well, this year I'm just not going to utilize a group, because I feel like I shouldn't be helping other people, number one, because, it's kind of like, just getting your friends in at the front of the line, right? Well,
yeah.
If they're really looking for the people, I get it now, as like, I don't want to just go ahead and solve all these things just so people can get to the phone number or the email message that they can need, and then basically subvert the rest of the system.
Okay, so I don't get it. You talk to these people. You know what they think. You know what their agenda is. You can have open conversations with them, just as I have been doing. They're the most incredible, brilliant, frank people, just like you're being right now. You're not being a wild man. You're so point on in what you're revealing. So my question to you is, okay, why you can talk to them? So whatever the riddle is, once you've figured it out, and it has taken and it will take, or I guess, lots of time to figure it out and lots of effort. But you already know what these people think. So isn't that a little bit kind of a letdown when you finally get the riddle?
Yeah! What are you talking about? Of course it is. Like, it's just like, I don't even, like, it. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, I see this. And I was like, but I get the puzzles, like, so people make sure that the right people get the right information. And, like the people that actually try, people can try to learn. And in this particular one, it kind of just seems like, it's a continuation. Like last year they were talking about, like, they were giving all these let-ons to Q, and then talking about a storm, and then they were talking about the flood approaching. Like, This is all stuff that happened before, Q started saying these things. Like, remember the future was like something that they had said at the beginning of last year. And now, like, we got Q, like, oh, future proves past, or, like, it's kind of weird because you can kind of see, like, overall, like, how things have changed. And like, when I started looking at this stuff, I was like, okay, well, this is gonna get the fire in hearts, like, this is really gonna get the fire going in people, which was ultimately was what the goal is get people on fire, get people awake, get them being like, oh god, what's going on? Because like, it takes something like this. It takes something like some nameless face to get you awake. It's the same thing that you saw that happened with Anonymous back in the day. It's the same thing that you've seen with various other entities that have cropped up. People are interested in a mystery, and that's how it always is. Like, you can't just hand people information and expect them to believe it, because if you make it too easy for them, then maybe they're not going to accept it. And that's kind of the line that Q was giving in the first place. You can see how things change throughout the cycle, and so far we see that it went from kind of be a little strange and weird and more codified to being something that's just it seems like some guys just like rehashing old information, down to Angela Merkel is Hitler's stepdaughter, and isn't that like some 2007 article from like some debunked source? Like,
oh yeah, it's silly now at this point. So I want to ask one more question about the past, and then we'll go into the attack on the first Q, and then what's going on now. Question: why is the new riddle? Why do they have the words up front? Why do they give you that tricked me and made me think I could solve the riddle because I understood the words, but I didn't look for all this stuff that you go in and get, which is 1,000 layers. So why are they give the words up front in the riddle this time?
Well, they always give the words up front in the riddle. Like last year, the first image that they posted said, "A cord of wood warms my eye." Like, that's all it said.
Oh.
But that was the riddle that was up there, so that was just kind of like the first thing that they were going to say. So like, that's like setting I guess it would be setting the mood for what's going on that year. And this year it was like, well, hold on, let me pull it up real quick because I don't remember exactly.
Well, my point is that you go in and you have to usually solve the riddles to get solve all the puzzle to get the words, or am I mistaken that?
Yeah, well, you have to go through and solve the riddles to get more of it. Like, that's just the beginning. The very beginning of it is just eagles rain fire on the Canaanites. So like, they're probably talking about jets raining fire on people that live around Israel. Mm-hmm. And then they talk about the merchant of wine challenges Cyrus, and the merchant of wine is obviously Saudi Arabia. And what's it called? Cyrus. I mean, that could be, Donald Trump. That could be like Israel or anything. But the sword of the lilies, like, these are the esoteric things that they talk about. Like, they apply old understandings and thoughts to them, and then it's kind of like something for people to ascertain for themselves. I mean, I've heard of a million different interpretations of this. Some people think that this person is this person is that. Some people think Cyrus is Donald Trump. Like, it's kind of like, for those parts of the thing, which are just little quotes and riddles, they always seem to be like a message that's being delivered. But those particular things seem to deal with future events, like predictions in a sort. Like, that's when they just give you stuff right up in front, mm-hmm. and they just give it to you. Mm-hmm. It's not technically a riddle. It's more like it's a prediction.
Exactly.
they're just like laying it on the line, and then if you want to get more into the prediction, you got to go through like the layers, the code. You have to decode the rest of it because that particular image right there had something hidden inside of it. Yeah. And it's the thing that was hidden inside of it was like a really long phrase that has something to do with some F-15 jet or something, the F-15E.
So yes.
Which makes me wonder, because if it's the F-15E and it says Eagles rain fire on the Canaanites, then it means that those Eagles, which are F-15s, and F-15Es are the ones that the Israelis got because they got them from us. That means that Israeli planes are going to be dropping bombs on people, in my opinion. And if we look at the Canaanites, that's got to be like Lebanon, Syria, like places in that area. And I just thought about it, like, who did we just bomb? Where did we just hit? We just hit in Damascus, right? Like, that keeps on going down. And the other thing that I've heard with Israel in particular, somebody had a misfire with the Iron Dome, right?
Wow. I didn't hear that. Oh, wow. Well, when I told when I told Z, the original the creator of Cicada and the original founder of whatever, based on the strategy that you came up with, when I told him what I believed it meant, he said, yes, how did you figure that out? And I told him all the things that I thought those symbols meant. I was wrong on every one of them. But somehow I got the right answer. But like you say, they wanted to tell you that right up front. And what you're saying is that's exactly the images that arise in the mind. And what you just said, though I do know a little bit of a partial answer, at least to the words, that, boy, you sure are one incredibly intelligent person. Now, let's go on. When Q started, you didn't really, like you said, you gave him ideas on the way that it would be done, but it started up, and you saw Q, and I saw Q, and it looked like cryptography, and it looked like it looked like mathematics, and it looked like all kinds of stuff, and so I thought, oh, that's pretty interesting. Now, when you saw it come up, did you say, holy hell, they stole my idea? Or did you already know they were going to use your idea?
Well, I kind of had an inkling that they were going to use my idea, but when I started seeing it happen, I was just kind of like, I'm just going to be quiet and see what happens. Because right now, like, there was a couple of things that they did that were weird, like when they first started out, they didn't follow the exact plan, and I'm just like, well, nobody follows the exact plan because everybody thinks they could, just get it done better than you, so that's fine. So, like, they, started off posting under without having a trip code first, and that was kind of a mistake, but I understand why they did it. And once they fixed that mistake, I kind of just started looking at it, and I had subscribers hitting me up about it, and I'm just kind of like, no, we're gonna wait. And I was like, because this is weird, I don't want to be first out of the gate on this one. I was like, I want to see who else was going to jump on it, because I just in my own opinion, I didn't know that it was connected at first. I wasn't really looking, because I'll be honest, I didn't really care. I was just like, Q, who's Q? I don't care.
And so you didn't know it was Cicada that started Q at that moment?
At that moment, no. And then I started looking at it. After I started looking at it, I was going back through the puzzle, and I was just like, the things that he was saying were very reminiscent of everything that was happening with the puzzle. And then it had some kind of very simple puzzles. Like, I think people that are in the Q community are trying to make these things out that he's saying, the way that he's structuring things out to be some ridiculously amazing puzzle, and it's not. And I even saw something today where somebody said, oh, there was something hidden in the flag. I can't believe you didn't find it. And I'm just all like, no, there was nothing hidden in that flag. That flag is not big enough to hide anything in. I know.
Yep. So then how did you figure it out that it was Cicada?
The way that I figured it out was that there was a couple of questions. There was a recruitment thing that had happened before DEFCON where they asked you a few questions that you would wanted to hear, right? Mm-hmm. And I had written some questions on North Korea, and it was not even a lot of them. I think it was 7 questions. And I wrote the 7 questions, and I had emailed them in to Z or whatever. And then later on, seriously, they were just posted, not even copy paste. So, and I was just and that's when I was just okay, what's happening here? Because there was only 2 ways for somebody to receive that information. They either had to get it off of my pastebin, which made it only about 100 people that had even seen the document, so that's not a lot of people. And then there was the email that I sent to Z. So that's 2 places that you could have gotten it from. So less than 100 people. Like, I was like, all right, well, this is strange. So that's when I went back, and then I just basically started hitting all of the cicada people I knew, and I was just like, what is happening? I know this is you guys. And they were just like, ah, shit, we were trying to keep it quiet away from you. And I'm just like, are you kidding me?
No.
I was like, do I look dumb? I'm like, do I look like a dumb guy to you? Like, because I know what I look like. I know I look like an idiot, but like, it's a very clever charade that I do. But it's like, I was like, okay, so who is it? Like, they gave me some information. They sent me an email, and I was like, okay, this is who it really is. And I was like, okay. And then they got mad at me because then I like went out and I said, oh, it's this person. And then I was just like, I was just testing you. And I was like, you guys don't get it that I'm like, like, I guess I could say that I'm a cicada, but like they look at me because I'm not obviously I don't operate in a privacy kind of like respect. Like, to me, I'm just kind of out there, and I'm just like, I don't give a shit. I'm more like Diogenes, I should say.
Yeah,
That's
you're
what I'm
like the coyote. Yeah, you're Diogenes, looking for a wise man with your lamp, even in the daytime.
Even in the daytime.
Yeah, when Alexander the Great came to Diogenes, and he lived in what was called a bathtub, Alexander came up and stood there and said, Diogenes, I'm here, the wise man you're looking for. And he looked up, and he looked at Alexander, and he said, could you move a little to the left? You're blocking the sun.
He said, and I'll be clear, he was like, you're blocking my sun, boy.
Said that was DeFango translation of Diogenes.
Yeah, that is what. No, I'm telling you, that's what Diogenes said. He was like, "You're blocking my sun, boy." And then Alexander was like, "Excuse me," and he was like, but he had like stepped back, and then Diogenes was like, "Oh, that's better," and he was like, "Who are you?"
I got a feeling that when you met Z, though I can tell you like him, nobody really overimpresses you, do they?
I don't impress myself, so I mean, I don't expect anybody to impress. I don't expect anybody to impress me. I mean, honestly, like I was freaked out like that whole entire time because I was like, all right, this is the government. They're gonna get me. I like mobbed around the building. I was like looking for people. Hey, I don't know what I was looking for. I was just like casing the building, I guess. Looking for exits and shit like that. Because I was like, all right, if this is it. And then, I walk into this restaurant, and then there's these, people sitting there, and I'm just kind of like, they're both looking at me like, hey! And I'm like, all right, well, I guess this is the people. And then immediately I was like, all right, well, I don't know. I was like, I guess I don't know why I was worried. These seem like some normal ass people. So, we ate some food, we talked. They gave me a letter and the spear, and they were just like, yeah, go hang out with that thing and just, have some fun with it. And
Whoa.
I did.
Whoa! What was the letter?
The letter was like it was like an old French letter. It seemed to be from like the 1300s, and it was a bunch of alchemical. It looked like alchemy recipes,
Wow.
but they were actually medical recipes. So like the one that's the most interesting was using the head of a pig, or was using pig skin and the head of a pig to create dressings for people to fix them, basically. So it's like a lot of the Knights Templars seem to be like, people would say they did occult things. Well, no, they were just really, really smart, and it was really interesting because this letter from the 1300s was saying how like to use this pig's head to prepare it, and how to use pig skin to prepare bandages for wounds, so like you could make a living cast of sorts. And this technology just barely got found out in 2017. Like, the letter that I had was as I was deciphering it, like, I'm watching the news, and they're talking about how they're doing the same thing with humanity, and it's crazy because, we're talking like over 700 years apart, but these guys were doing this sort of thing back then. And it had like a recipe for dysentery, or it had a cure for dysentery on it, which is very, very interesting because, like, if this cure for dysentery would have actually gone with the guy that it was supposed to go to, like, there's a bunch of people that on the Oregon Trail that probably wouldn't have died.
Wow. So they convinced you very quickly. So now let's go over the story. So we now laid the background. Now you see Q come out. You figured out who they are. They invite you in. They prove stuff to you. And then in October, November, somehow a war happens between kind of two factions, is what I understand, to take over control of the Q dumps. I would like for you to use your genius to convince people with all those statistics and facts that you were fully aware of what was happening. You had actually predicted it ahead of time. You had warned them. They didn't listen to you. And the people, and they were taken over by, as you said, there was some kind of way to get in, which you can explain, and that they took it over. And now it's kind of silly. What I say is this, and you correct me on this. I say that the new Q, all they have to do is take the old Q and then take the alternative news metadata, do a little bit of predictive linguistics with it, do a little analysis of the old Q, and they pop out something that is got the same kind of flavor, but doesn't have the codes. Does the new Q carry any code that would in any way convince you that they were similar to the first Q?
No, it does not. Like, they do some simplistic things by, like, you know, bracketing things and highlighting them, but, like, there's no real stenography that I can see in there, and there's no real, like, cryptology that's associated with it. They're just calling back to their own links. So, you know, you were talking about the November thing. So, they had been doing Q. They started like doing the Q thing, like the leaks and everything started happening. Like I believe it was like the end of August, the beginning of October, somewhere in there. And Cicada 3301 had been mentioning stuff like in April or in August about it, and after this point in time, like these dumps start coming out, and they started leaking it out a little bit, little by little, under a non-de-plume, you know, just an anonymous user, and then that stuff got eventually collected up into being an actual user. So, but for all this time, everything was happening on 4chan. Okay, so like during the November rush, like I was like sitting there, like, hey guys, like you need to like Matlock, you need to get out of there, because like danger, you guys are going to get basically like hacked, you know, like sec test, because somebody basically would have been able to figure out the trip code at that point. And, you know, when you're posting on a 4chan board, you know, you have a couple different ways that you can post. Now, the IP addresses matter with the person or matter when the person posts. But if you create a trip code, this trip code allows you to basically always post as this one person on the board. So like you can be identifiable, and they call it being a trip fag. Meaning like, oh, I'm important, so somebody's gonna, you know, like people should know who I am, and you know, like that's just something that you don't do on 4chan, number one. But it's the way that people can utilize it to do things like Q. So Q started using a trip code, and basically the clock started as soon as Q was running the trip code. I would have had to have said it was only about 2 weeks that it would have taken because of the stupid password that he chose. Matlock? Are you kidding me? Matlock? That's not even. So it would have not, you know, like you could download a program online for free that will allow you to basically figure out any trip code. You just got to put in what the trip code is that you want, and then this program can basically solve to get it. So somebody would have been able to do this, and I think it was the first part of November when they were still posting on the first Q trip code. Like I had been making videos, and I was basically talking some smack. I was like, y'all need to cut it out, bro, because you're going to get caught. Somebody's going to take over your shit. You already gone too long. I was like, you guys need to stop this right now, because like I was kind of like, hey, man, you're going too far. You know, like I get that you're getting really happy with all the attention and stuff that you're getting. And I was like, but this is, you know, like this has gone on way too long. And I was like, now there's been enough time for somebody to jump in here and subvert it. And literally within like a week of making a video, you know, making my decree, all of a sudden we had all these trip code problems, and the Q guy had to move over to 8chan. And when Q moved over to 8chan, it was all over, baby. Because number one, you're going from one website to another. And yes, people could make the argument that they use the kind of the same system to make trip codes, so one trip code will work for the other one and kind of vice versa. But the thing on that is that the trip code changed when he went over to 8chan. So that could have been any new individual person that was doing it. And according to Q, of November 25th was supposed to be the last date of his drop. And that was like, I was like, dude, you got to stop. You cannot do any more, because like if this goes on any longer, either A, you're going to be identified, or B, somebody's going to be able to get in there and snake it. And guess what? Just moves over to 8chan. And there's all kinds of new stuff. There's all kinds of new boards that are built up. It's like a whole army is amassed. You know, a whole meme generation army is established overnight. And if you're not really too familiar with 4chan, like 4chan's a place where these big internet viral things happen all the time. And it always seems to happen in the same way. Something starts getting really, really big on the chan, and then the mods, because they're fags, they like basically ban these people off of the board because they're like, all right, no more of this crap because this has gone too long. They'll ban people, and then this group of people that seems to be the same group of people, in my opinion, will always do their best to move everybody over to 8chan, kind of just funnel all these people over, like, yeah, come do your stuff over here, guys. And it's just kind of funny because it just happened in the same way, like it happens in the same way every single time, and it's like people forget or they don't even know about it, so they're unaware. So it's like from the move from 4chan to 8chan, the new Q, can't be the same Q. And that was what I was saying from the get-go. Like, I was entertaining it and putting like kind of videos out there, but kind of basically debunking it without actually sitting there and being true, saying, hey, this shit is like real fake. I was like making really funny, like kind of joking videos and going over the leaks. But if people that have been watching my videos understand kind of like the structure and how I do things, and they can tell very quickly when I'm saying, oh yeah, he said this happened and then this post was made and look at the times, and like, oh my God, it's like so close. But then it's like time. If you know anything about time zones, you realize that it's all bullshit.
Okay,
and
so
it's like,
why didn't you, or did you call up Z at that moment and say, hey, is this somebody else that when we went from 4chan to 8chan? Z.
Yeah, he was like, it's somebody else.
That ain't me, right?
Yeah, he was like, dude, that's not us. And I was like, okay, perfect. And I was like, well, then I guess I was like, this is how you. I was like, now we're gonna see who's real and who's not real. Check this out. And I made a video on my channel and I told everybody what was going down. And I was like, so watch. Over the next couple of months, we're going to see all these things happen. We're going to see channels live. We're going to see channels blow up out of nowhere. We're going to see channels die. We're going to see all these things. And all these things have happened. It's like we've seen so many people like explode on this Q thing. And then, we have all these interesting characters like Jerome Corsi, for example, or even Goodman that, have kind of like latched in and try to like put their own spin on the whole entire situation. But if you look at these guys are doing everything that's after. They're doing Q number 2. They're not doing the stuff from Q number 1. And that was all the stuff that was mentioning, Israel, kind of like good information. And then after we get into this, after this November 25th period, we get into this Q2, and it almost starts becoming like the internet greatest hits where somebody's just kind of collecting stuff and putting it in there. Yet, okay, the pictures, those are interesting, but like if you use logic, who's going to be able to do this? Who's got the ability to be this close to the president? Who's got the ability to have access to these news stories before anybody else? And the only thing that could tell you this is somebody that was involved with like the AP Newswire, somebody that has Cision, somebody that takes photographs for the, what's it called, for basically the Associated Press. And if you look back at all of like some of these posts that were being used, you're looking at pictures that, somebody that has been known, like that's taken pictures of Hillary Rodham Clinton. This is the same person that's, almost giving all the connectory materials for, this post that all these people are promoting and saying, look, Q's in with the White House because look at all these things that are matched together. Like it's really insane how far people are going to, like give validity to this and, like how they're grasping into these things. When if you originally look at the way that the dumps work, they only went XYZ and everything was very methodical. And if they were trying to preempt something, they preempted it by like a day or two. This other stuff, like they're trying to say they preempted it by an hour. But if you go mess with the time, if you go actually do the time zone change, you realize they did everything after the fact.
DeFango, Corsi says that he has absolutely verified that when it moved from 4chan to 8chan, that that he checked these trip codes, he checked this, he checked that, and it all worked out and was all correct. What do you have to say about that? He says that's verified.
Weird. That's weird. Who did he talk to? Did he talk to the mods at 8chan who had a big need for having all these people on their website so that they could, be utilizing the situation? Yeah. And it's funny, so the trip code matched up, okay, but did the IP addresses match up? Did they share the original Q's IP address? Because that might be an easy way to make it look like that, but I haven't seen any evidence out there, and there's nothing that Mr. Dr. Jerome Corsi, no disrespect to him, there's nothing that I've seen that's come from his situation that would ever tell me that he had the ability to discern that.
That is exactly my point. I'm glad I didn't say it. Question, why won't he bring you on his show and talk to you, seeing that you know more about this than anybody else in public? And in fact, we now know that you were chosen as somewhat of the voice of the original group of people who created Q. Why wouldn't he talk to you when you could actually then really lay it straight? Is it because he's just getting so many hits from millions of people being obsessed with this Q thing, and because I respect him too, and because he has a lot of history, so he can look at this and he can say, well, that reminds me of this or that or this or that. But as I say, he is part of a crime. If the PsyOps Q, the second Q, had pictures on Air Force One and released it, that's a crime. If they had pictures anywhere, anything to do with the president, cannot be released. Executive privilege, it's national security. It is a crime. They're looking for the leakers, and you're going to tell me that a Q inside of the White House keeps leaking like a like a sieve, and he isn't going to get caught when there's 5 people. One of them has 500 people, Michael Horowitz, looking for the leakers, and they're not going to catch Q. Q ain't in the White House. The new Q ain't in the White House. And it is simply generated by a Q-bot.
No. It's not like a bot. There's no bots that are associated with it. It's like there's still a person that lives in Washington, D.C. that is posting this. But, I mean, they could be using the same Washington, D.C. VPN address. They could just be having a Raspberry Pi that's chilling over in there. And they're just logging through the VPN and using that same IP address to go throughout and post on it. But the reality is that if you look at the way that the information is coming out, we're not seeing something that can't be figured out and eliminated, but by processes of elimination, by looking at the images that are coming out, the main images that the people that seem to be behind, like wanting to promote the Q movement and bring validity to these certain little things, you start to see that, like you're messing with this. You actually are just messing with the same people, like they call it on the 4chan, that will call it like same fagging, where you basically will use multiple IP addresses and post under your own post to make it seem like more people are interested in the idea. And that right there, that can totally be botted. But, it's like, so you have the Q guy go post something from this one particular IP address with the, what's it called, with the trip code. And then after that, you could have like a bot basically go and bump the post a bunch of times with a bunch of, pre-generated content. Like, that's just a bot. With the information that they're getting, I mean, yeah, if you're in the Associated Press, you could get the Associated Press picture drop, and then you would know that within an hour somebody was going to post it. Though, like, there was one that went out where it was like the picture of Donald Trump holding that card with the shit on it or whatever, where it was talking about, do I hear you? And all these Q-tards are just going freaking out on this thing. And if you look at it, it's like, okay, the person that took the picture works for the Associated Press. She posted the picture at this time on the Associated Press website, and within 30 minutes it was on its first thing. If you go back to the exact time that it was posted, they were posted at pretty much the same exact time. It's almost like somebody uploaded the picture to AP, and then they made the Q post, but they forgot to put something in there, and then they went back and edited it after the fact. And the evidence is actually still there because you can see that the post in fact was edited. And when you look at it, you're like, oh, wait a minute, it went up on this website. Oh shit, it's actually after the fact. Like, they posted this after it. So, but they're going real hard to try to make it seem like it was before. And then if you say anything about it, or if you do anything negative, all of a sudden you get stonewalled, and people are like, oh, well, you're not a patriot, you're against this. And I'm like, what? Like, it's very weird. It's almost like what a lot of people don't realize is they think that they're alt-right, or they think that Q is alt-right, but Q is designed to bring everybody together, the alt-right and, the alt-left, which seems crazy. But, like, now these people, they don't really realize is that they're kind of doing the same kind of shit that the other guys are doing. Like, like there's almost the line between the line between parties is slowly but surely becoming null and void, because like people are always like, oh, I'm left wing or oh, I'm right wing, and I've always been looking at folks and I'm like, yo, it doesn't really matter about the wings. I care about the whole bird, because if the bird dies, we're all kind of screwed.
Like that. I'm gonna steal that from you. Hey, so let me see if I get this right. The original Q, who you know, and the group that supported Z, we call this person, didn't use whistleblower, didn't have a Q clearance inside of some place that top secret. He wasn't in the White
He
House.
had a Q clearance. He had a Q clearance.
Well, early on.
It's his DOJ, dude. It's not a DOJ clearance. It's a Department of Energy clearance. And the person that I put out there on that, if people want to know the name, they can go back on my channel and look. But the person that I put out there has all X, Y, and Z. And I mean, it's people were like, oh, yeah, well, they have a Q clearance, so that's good. Well, even if it is a Q clearance, I mean, if you really look at that, they've been kind of hinting at some weird things that are going to be happening in the future. And, somebody with the Department of Energy clearance would have quite a lot of information on infrastructure in the United States, power plants and that sort of thing. Like, that's information that, even the POTUS doesn't really get access to, because...
Are you saying the original Q did have people who had very high clearances inside the government currently at the moment they released the Q stuff?
Yeah, like I believe that the first bit of leaks and everything that came out came from actual verifiable like clearance level access. And then after a certain point, I believe in November, like after Q was going on too long, I was kind of like, hey, you need to cut it out, because like you're going to be in big trouble, because you're going way off books on this thing and it's gone on too long. I'm looking at this. I'm like looking at this situation as it's unfolding, and I'm just like, you just need to stop.
Okay.
Because either way, the name was out there, and I was like, but there was no wrongs to be had. There was nothing that has done it incorrectly. Like everything was situated correctly, and it should have just ended right there. But as we all know, it didn't end right there. It grew on, and it became its own movement. So now there's this new Q collective of people that are in charge of it, basically guarding their secret.
Yeah, so there's no laws were broken by the first Q. That's what I'm trying to drive to. Even though I have been completely convinced that Z at one point had a very high clearance. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean that's what I guess. I see. That's what I guess is that they had a high clearance, but you got to realize is that Z is not one person.
That's right. Now, so how about the new Q that was taken over by the PSYOPs? Do you think they got anybody on the inside?
Oh, I mean, obviously. I mean, if you look at it, they talked about, the clowns being in control, and it'd be really easy for any agency, the NSA or the CIA. And it's funny that you say that. It's like a lot of people have always mentioned that the CIA seems to have something to do with 4chan in the beginning, but like these guys have the tools, like from Vault 7 and all the CIA tools that came out there. They'd have all the access and everything they need to create an operation like this, where it'd be basically... you would get them on one thing, and once they moved, like they basically intercept all the traffic. So all the people posting on the message board, all the people going through, and then all of a sudden we start seeing websites come up like QAnonPosts.com, where there's ads running on the thing, and if you go to it on your phone, all of a sudden you get weird Russian pop-ups and stuff like that. It's a whole operation, because that's what you do. Most people don't go directly, like they will go directly to 4chan to try to scroll, or they'll go to 8chan to try to scroll, but now it's almost like a collectionary system. Like I've seen this happen before, and there was this guy, his name was like Seb Green. He was from Texas, and he like had run this like campaign where he made a bunch of social media accounts and a website about something that had happened, like Ferguson. And he was basically just doxing people for the Ferguson police, and then just giving all of their records and everything over to individuals to identify, like dissenters and things of that nature. And if you go look at what's going on with Q, we're getting a whole load of new people that are in there that just want to know things, but most of them don't have no idea what's going on, and they're so involved with it mentally and physically now that like they listen to stuff like this and they're just gonna be, they'll either freak out and attack you, or they might be like, they'll take a step back and just be like, all right, I interneted too hard, I am not ready for this.
I have vetted what I've been told. I have checked things out. I've talked to the number of these people. I have met some of these people, and I can say it's absolutely real. I can say you are so friggin' authentic Thank you for not cussing so much on this one.
Hey, no problem. I'm doing my best.
And thank you for being so frank. If anybody thinks you don't have absolute perfect candor, then they aren't listening. So what can you tell us in the closing moments of this conversation about what you say to what you call cutards? Now, first off, I'm not so sure that they're all retards. I think that
they're
people
not.
are so desperate. They're just so desperate for hope. DeFango, what do you say to these people so that when they're red-pilled, they don't get so angry that their programming drives them mad? I mean, can you help them in any way, awaken in a way that isn't terribly painful?
Well, I mean, personally, I can't help you directly, but I can always just say that, in any time of spiritual awakening, because I'm a pretty spiritual person, if you're going through these tumultuous times, you got to realize is that the answers don't come from outside. The answers come from inside. And if you're outside, if you're looking always outside of yourself for answers to these questions, I mean, you're always going to run into problems and things. And the internet is a crazy place. Like, Q is meant to light the fire in the hearts of men and women all across the planet and get them asking questions in the relevant way, get them to start researching things in the relevant way. But it was always meant to be do the work. You are supposed to do the work yourself. You're not supposed to just jump to the conclusions that are coming from every Tom, Dick, and Harry, part of my French that's out there on the web. It was meant to have you look at yourself and look at the life that you've been living and actually start doing the work to try to figure this stuff out for yourself. And now, watching media programs like this one is great because, you get good information out there, but you should still question everything that we say and you should still look at it. But the one thing that you shouldn't do is just blindly follow because, you don't want to become a sheep. Just because somebody dyed the wool on your back to black doesn't make you still not a sheep. If you're a sheep and then somebody sheared your, wool off in the shape of a Q, you're still a sheep with a Q on the back of it.
So is there anything good coming out with your strategy that you came up with and what you just explained for the real reasons and what you're telling the people who are following the current Q? Is there good content there for them, even though it may be coming from some odd source?
Yeah, I think there's good content everywhere to be found. But, for everything, it's like you should be questioning the things that you're receiving. And you should be looking at the authenticity of the individual that's delivering the information to you. Like everybody's got an agenda. And I have an agenda, too. Like I tell everybody all the time, I want to watch the world burn. And some people take that in a negative light, and I don't, because I was like, yeah, I want to see the fire in people, like I want to see people finally just say, you know what, screw this. I'm so sick and tired of all this crap and say, no more, no more, no more. And then finally just use that power inside of themselves, that fire that's always been there, that understanding, that wisdom that exists within your soul, your body, inside of you, inside your DNA. All I wanted it to do was light the fire inside of people and get them to start asking questions, because this is what I did for myself, and it's the only thing that I could have seen to work and actually get people involved. And nobody can argue that fact that it indefinitely did. Some people may not like the methods and understandings, but ultimately, I came forward and came clean about everything months ago on this situation, and everything that's happened ever since then has just been me, kind of just trying to tell people like, hey, things are weird right now. Maybe you should look at what's happening. And eventually I think people will realize is that, if you watch my channel, I am helping you deprogram to this sort of thing, because it's the only thing that I could really do for the people.
It's beautiful. Your strategy to enkindle in people the ability to discern, to know truth from falsehood is incredibly noble and aligned with what we do here at Aim for Truth, and aligned with what I know now is the impulse behind Cicada and Z and all those good people there. DeFango, people are going to get upset by this. They're going to write us questions. Would you be willing to chat with me and go over those questions and answer them at some later point in the conversation?
Oh, yeah, sure, dude. No problem. I mean, trust me, dude. You said people are going to be mad at you. People are already mad at me, bro.
They're mad at me too. But, I don't care. For truth, I'm willing to sacrifice everything. And it sounds like you're one of those kind of guys too.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, if anybody actually ever goes after anybody involved with this thing, whose door do you think they're gonna knock on first?
The spokespeople like you and me.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
That's a joke.
saying. I'm like, y'all don't need to worry about anything until somebody comes knocks on my door, and you best believe that if it happens, it'll be live streamed, and like there's gonna be some, like we'll definitely talk about it.
But you've
And if you
committed
have,
no crimes, and neither has the first Q or Cicada or anybody else. Neither have I. I've never committed any crimes, no whistleblowing, no secret information revealed that wasn't supposed to be. How about you? Have you committed any crimes?
no, I haven't committed any crimes in this situation at all. I mean, I haven't revealed any secret information. I haven't hacked into anybody. I haven't done anything. I mean, the only crime that I guess that I could even be aware of is mind hacking a crime? It's just like it's just like collectively coming up with an idea and then just like watching it happen and not really do anything. I guess that's a crime. Because I mean, I let it happen for a while, but then I let it, I said something about it and it still happened. And I'm just like, all right, well, eventually this is going to come around and bite me in the butt. But at that point in time, people are just going to see what happens live and then it'll be great.
You are amazing. You have now answered the assaults against us. You have proven that you have direct contact with Z and the people who started the original Q. You understand completely. You've explained why there are two sets of Qs and maybe many, many more, as you've pointed out. And have said that you've been doing this work. Anybody can go look at it. The proof is in the pudding. You're still doing this work. You're still going to continue this work. I don't know. I consider you a patriot. What do you think?
Yeah, I consider myself a patriot as well. That's what I consider myself to be. But even then, like if I look at where I am in life, I mean, I'm not like some amazing out of this way person. I'm not rich. I have a laptop. I have a shitty car, and I just, I do the things that I think are really necessary. That's it. And even then, everybody's got an opinion.
Well, DeFango, I want to ask you a question. Would you be willing to join the conclave that informs us here at Aim for Truth about, when we have questions, that I could call you and say, hey, what about this? What about this? Because as we do this kind of group work together and we share it all together, the more that unite, the stronger we are. Would you be willing to be a person I could call on? I call those people my conclave if they actually can be a source.
All right, yeah, definitely. I'll be part of the conclave.
Yes! That makes my day. Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to jump off now because I got to go eat. And you just dropped the biggest bombs right over the target that I could possibly get anywhere. As you said, I don't know if you said it, but I don't think I'm ever going to get Z to talk in public. I don't think that will ever happen. But
Never.
Talking to you, hello, you were talking with him on the phone. I mean, you were right there with him. I may never get to meet this person, but you are living proof. DeFango, I salute you as a patriot and as a new member of the conclave, and we'll be speaking with you again soon.
All right, well, it's wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.